This is Rob Thompson. You're watching Charge Your Career Connect, and I have a special guest today. One of my former teammates back at UNH back in, I don't know, about 55 years, 60 years ago, David Gibson. So how you doing, Dave?
Doing well, Rob. How you doing?
Good, good. Like I said, it's great to see you working for the Yankees now. It's a nice transition.
Yeah, retirement job.
So I'm going to brag about you a little bit. So Dave was a two-sport athlete at UNH, and which is never easy to do. Playing one sport, especially the times that we were there, was not easy. We didn't have a practice facility. We had to walk out to Kerrigan. We didn't have a practice facility for track. You still had to go to, I think you guys were at Yale back then too, weren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it goes back that long. So we never had the facilities, and we never had that either. So we're sitting in a lot of the same spots. I mean, these are right now, this is a Career Connect podcast. So we want to talk about your transition, but we also want to just reinforce the fact that we relate. We sat in the same chairs that you guys sat in Maxey Hall and in the dining room, and those locker rooms haven't changed much in 30 years. So we've been through the same things. And these are our alums want to share the stories on how they transition from being a student athlete, having the same anxieties and stress and challenges that you have and are going through, minus COVID and all that. But still, there was challenges that we faced and how we overcame them. So Dave, I appreciate it. We've been friends now for over 30 years, and it's good to see you. You haven't, yeah, I know it. Listen, man, you haven't aged a bit. You're not even gray, for crying out loud.
Oh, you get a little closer.
So let's start off of your background. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? What's your story, and then your transition to UNH?
I grew up in New Haven, actually, in Westville. Went to Notre Dame High School for high school, then went to UNH right after high school. So I'm pretty much a New Haven kid, transitioned into West Haven, and went to UNH.
Yeah, well, we have a very similar story, right? We crossed paths in high school, and we're both local kids that stayed there, and we didn't realize how great the pizza was until we moved away, I think.
Exactly.
So Dave, you spent 31 years in law enforcement as within the ATF, and you've went through many different roles that you've had. You worked right through the ranks, working in the violent crime coordinator, criminal intelligence officer. You were an instructor for the National Academy, and you're a supervisor now for supervisor for everybody over there. You're based in New Jersey, but you worked out of Manhattan in New Jersey for a long time.
Right. I started in Connecticut, started in Hartford. At the time it was called an inspector. It was like an investigator. We inspected the firearm, alcohol, explosive industries. So, I got the groundwork in regards to ATF there. Then I transferred to New York. Probably in 1999, I think it was, and did more of the criminal investigation stuff there. So through Brooklyn, Manhattan, the Bronx, that's pretty much where I worked as investigative work, primarily gang work, and gun trafficking. So that was primarily the role in New York through even 9/11, which I was at the towers on that day.
Well, we could talk about that in a second if you want to, but let's talk about your transition as a student athlete. And a lot of us who played sports at that time were criminal justice majors, and we had some legendary professors at that time, right? And we had some legendary ones that came through, and they're all former FBI guys. And but what was your mindset? I know we had a bunch of our teammates went on to the federal side of it and state, but what was your mindset? Did you know that was a career path that you wanted to take? Or did you say, let me start as a local, maybe work my way up? Or did you know your direct path was in federal?
I think out of high school, I thought I wanted to be a Secret Service agent. I just thought it looked cool, suits and a machine gun, under the suit. You're protecting the president. But as when I went to the New Haven, and had Dave Maxwell as one of the professors, he was an ex-FBI agent, and he was one of the like most of the professors at UNH, you could sit down and talk to them and try to come up with a career path, and they pretty much steered you in the right direction. So again, at UNH, they had the career development office. I'm not sure if they still have that.
Oh, yeah.
They'll have career days, and they'll bring various law enforcement entities into UNH. So state, local, federal agencies in, and you're able to talk to them. So coming into UNH, yeah, I wanted to go into law enforcement. So I was on the right path for criminal justice, but didn't really know what I wanted to do until, 2 or 3 years into the program. So, again, talking to Dave Maxwell, Craig Parker, and Professor Robbins, those were they were very instrumental to me in my career choices. So that's where it led me to ATF.
We had Eddie Foley on a couple weeks ago, and
Okay.
and Eddie was talking about, and he's right around he's probably a little bit behind you, but he's 30 years with the FBI in Manhattan. And
Right.
he was like, back in the day, Maxwell just gave me a number at the FBI, office down in New Haven. And he goes, I just made a cold call and said, hey,
Right.
you're right. So nowadays that's much different, obviously. Talk about the internship programs. I know you've been able to take a lot of interns that came down from New Haven down to your offices down there. Talk about what you look for, and if these student athletes are starting to prepare their social media, prepare their resumes, prepare their experience and their skills, what are you looking for?
As an intern, usually I got the athletes because I knew their mindset, and when they're coming into an intern program, I know where they, their mindset. They're pretty much A personalities. They are aggressive somewhat, meaning they want to do the job, and they're hungry to do something to fulfill the needs of the internship. So I was lucky to get at least 4 interns from New Haven. They all worked out very well. I want to say 2 or 3 of them went through our ATF process. One is an agent. The others one went to Secret Service. One went to the Coast Guard Academy as a law enforcement investigator. So again, what I'm looking for are motivated individuals that their career path is leading to law enforcement. The group that I supervise is primarily gang oriented. We go after the violent members of society, the shooters, gun possessors. So they're going to get an experience of that when they work with me. It's hands-on. They might not go on the streets with us or knock a door down, but the background, the intel, they're going to get, and they're going to understand it. And based on UNH and where they are now, is light years ahead of where we were. They just bring a whole different element to like intel gathering, and everything that we do is intel based. So we gather the intel, then we do the investigation. So these interns will be so involved with this program.
What are some of the skill sets when you say intel research, data analytics? Really, how much is that in the digital space now? How much is that as just as simple as looking up a bad guy's Facebook account? I mean, I know it's much deeper than that, but maybe not. Maybe that's a place that people start. I don't know, but how much experience and what are the simple things that, that you look for?
As long as they can query the computer. I'm not a big computer person. Usually they're telling me. So it is a lot of social media. You have Facebook. That's as far as Instagram, if that's what it's called now or whatever it is. They're very familiar with all these social media platforms. And we, for like an intel perspective, we are looking at that. So they're posting guns, they're posting shootings, they're posting rap videos of shooting, selling drugs, and criminal activities. Yeah, I guess I'm giving some secrets away. Yeah, we're looking at that. and we can prove that you are involved in criminal activity while, we're looking at your video. So,
Yeah. No secrets. I'm a schmuck sitting down here in Florida. I kind of figure out where I would look. Like if I'm looking for somebody, I'm starting at their Instagram account.
right.
Yeah. Talk about this then, because I'm sure what you've experienced, what you've seen, above and beyond, 9/11, I'm sure that had such an impact on you personally. And, when you're around the bad guys a lot, it has an effect on you. I'm sure that there's a lot of things that you had to kind of dig out of your brain and dig out of emotionally, being attached to this, because when you're working in that environment, I'm sure when you're working with criminals all the time, things could pop up, but the character of people and the guys that you work with, the men and women that you work with, have to be so rock solid, right, to overcome a lot of that stuff. What do you find some of the challenges that you faced in your career and with your profession right now that maybe these student athletes need to know? I mean, these are this is what the job is, and this is part of it. And what are those things that they should know?
Know your surroundings. Again, you're at UNH, you're in your community. Like you, like me, we're gonna know people that do illegal things, that people are involved in a game. You have to learn to separate it. And sometimes they are friends of yours. It's a challenge because we do have friends that do things that are not acceptable, do things that might be considered criminal. That's one of the biggest challenges. And it's just tough to, it's not tough to separate yourself, but it's just, it's just a matter of trying to separate yourself from that activity. As you get a little older, it's even easier. When you're in school, it's tough at times. But we all know someone or, a group that might be, challenging, especially for a criminal justice major. This is what the field you want to get into. You might be investigating them, in the future. But it's just tough.
I'm glad you never had to investigate me there, Mr. Gibson.
No one at UNH for me.
Yeah, that's a good one. Man, I had to be silly and throw that in, but I had a really great question for you. Leadership. I know that, when you work in big organizations like that, like you've done, and it's much more than just a challenge out in the streets, because a lot of times you could control that to your best. Sometimes it's hard internally to control what's happening, right? With leadership and with changes in jobs and overcoming that. And I think a lot of student athletes get a taste of that, of dealing with coaches changing, leadership, being yelled at, being put in tough situations. What are some of the things, surviving in any type of federal organization like that? That's a skill set in and of itself. Right. It's like going on the street is the easy probably part after a while for you, but being internally and dealing with that, certain characteristics of good leaders, people that don't get caught up in drama, people don't get caught up in gossiping. I know we've played with them and you've probably worked with a ton of them. What is that skill set that you think that you could advise these student athletes of how they have to start thinking about being a leader, overcoming challenges, overcoming the drama, not getting caught up in the gossip? What are some of those things they need to start thinking about to work for an agency like yours?
I think one of the key things, since we're talking about student athletes, I think it starts with the coaches. When you're listening to your coaches, a lot of things that your coach said is going to come back. You're going to think, you're going to smile. It's like, that sounds like, let's say, Coach Mack. It sounds like Coach Palmer. That's something that they would say. Then you start saying the same thing, and it's you catch yourself. You're like, wow, that was Coach Mack that said that, It's like when every Labor Day you put something out, right, Rob?
That's right.
Coach Mack.
That's right.
But it's law enforcement is like a sport. It's like it's a team. So you treat it that way. As a manager, as a supervisor, you're the coach of your group, and you treat it pretty much the same way. That's how I approach it. So if I'm the coach of my group, You know, everybody's going to be held accountable. Everybody's going to be accountable to each other, and you're going to succeed. So it's no different than being on a team. So again, that's my approach.
Well, in your line of work too, you're accountable because your lives depend on it.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so you better be accountable for that part of it. And it was the quote I say every year with Coach Mack was, you know, every weekend was usually our kickoff weekend, a weekend before our first. It was, gentlemen, today's a day of labor. Take a lap. Running around. Right. You smell the barbecues going. You're like, oh man, this better be worth it. So last question, and this is the one that I think will say a lot about, and this is the one that I think students get a lot out of. You know, if you're going to go back, everything that you know now in your life of, you know, just everything you've experienced in the last 31 years, and I'm sure there's a great book sitting in there, Gibby, you know, but with a bunch of unbelievable stories, especially from 9/11 all the way through. But what would that advice be? Things that you know now. I mean, you were always like a straight, narrow guy, you know, in college anyways, you know, so you and Freeze, I don't think you guys ever left the dorms. I never saw you downtown anyways, but what advice would you give yourself back then if you're going to go back in time about what you know now?
Pretty much enjoy your college life, you know. There's a prize to get, and you just have to know what you want to get. It's challenging. You want to have fun. If you're going to go in law enforcement, you can have fun, you know. You're saying, you know, I've been downtown, uptown, wherever you want to say. I've seen Freeze. We had a good time, but from UNH, from your freshman year, it's raw. You don't know what to expect. As you get into your senior year, you have to get more focused. So like your junior year, you're going to have an idea of where you want to be. Senior year, you're going to say, okay, I want to take this path. I want to go into local law enforcement. I want to go to state law enforcement. I want to go to federal law enforcement. Do your research. Figure out what the agencies are looking for. When you apply for a job, you're going for an interview, make sure you know what the agency is about. You know, if you're going to go to ATF, what does ATF stand for? What is their mission? It's all on their website, you know? Use that in your interview. Same thing with FBI, DEA, state police, anything. All their information is there. Do your research, understand what it's about, and believe it or not, you will wow them in an interview because they're going to say, oh, you did your research on this agency. And from there, you own the interview. That's pretty much how I see it. Actually, I got panel interviews tomorrow. I had one yesterday. And it's just, again, do you know what you're interviewing for? And some people fail at that one thing. I'm like, you come into ATF, you don't know what ATF stands for. You know, so.
Well, you know, yeah, that's alcohol, tobacco, firearms, some of my favorite things there.
Everybody.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And, you know, jobs don't find you. You have to find jobs. No one's going to sit around. When we have time that David gave us today, use it, connect with him and other mentors that we have on here, because they're going to be your first ticket to a job. After that, you're on your own. But UNH, that first connection, that first job is going to come from UNH, you know, so right. Use it wisely. Use opportunities like this to connect with David. And so how do they what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
You can reach me on LinkedIn. You can call. My actually email is probably the best. david.gibson@atf.gov. Probably the best way. If you're going to send me an email, might as well send me a resume and just say if you're looking for an internship or just advice. Send me an email.
Awesome.
If you're at UNH, my cousin works in admissions, Monique Bolt.
Monique's your cousin? Oh, yeah, man.
Monique's my cousin.
Oh, gosh. The world just keeps getting smaller.
Exactly. So she sends me names, and again, another person that sends me excellent people from UNH. So, but again, the best way to reach me is through email, LinkedIn. I get alerted when a LinkedIn message comes in. But again, internships, you're going to have to go through a full background check. You're going to get access to, the databases that we have. So that's why you're going to go through a background. It's not a couple weeks. It's going to be at least a month for a background check. So start early. So if you're looking for the fall, start now. If you're looking for next spring, start in the fall. So give it some time.
Yeah, we'll connect with him quickly, folks, because he's retiring soon. So he's going to be working for the Yankees before you know it. So, David, thank you for your time, man. We hope to see you on campus this spring.
Definitely. I'll talk to you later, Rob.
All right, man. That's Dave. This is Rob. You're watching Charger Career Connect, everybody. Stay tuned. And remember, you got a long runway, so you're going to figure out what you hate doing long before you discover a career that you love. So stay with it. Go Chargers.